Welcome to the Abundant Broker System. Thanks for joining the webinar. And reminder, everybody's on mute. If you have questions, go ahead and type them in. And at the end, we'll have time to address some of those questions. Before we get started, I just want to share, this is my privilege to be able to get such a big shot off his crazy schedule. I've known Nate for a number of years, since he started out of school and began applying the Abundant Broker System. I just honored and proud to see what that looks like today and all that he's accomplished. Please help me welcome Nate Worthen. And for everybody at home, let's just give him a hand, even though we're muted. How are you, Nate?
Hey, good, Mike. Thank you very much for having me on to talk about the Abundant Broker System. I think it's really cool what you've put together.
Well, thanks for joining us again. And will you share with our audience just a little bit about you? Maybe I'll get to the point. Nate has been involved in transactions in over 50 countries and 700 cities, and using a specialized technique that he'll share with you more about. Go ahead, Nate, share with us a little bit.
Yeah, so I got my start at a firm in Salt Lake City where you and I met and got assigned to work on some corporate clients. So I applied the principles that you've memorialized in the Abundant Broker System to kind of the corporate world. And I'd like to just share, looks like I'm not able to share my screen. So I don't know if Kayla can help us with that. But I'd like to share a map of deals I've done. I've done deals either myself or a member of my team in over 700 different markets around the world, 50 different countries. Mike, you'll remember a trip I took to North Korea, which seemed unbelievable at the time, and scouted out some real estate there and did some snowboarding. So yeah, that's kind of where I've been over the last decade, and trying to help people navigate the complicated world of commercial real estate all over the world.
It's amazing. I remember that North Korea trip and being invited right before all the nuclear shenanigans happened. Let me trade you your killer. Anyway, it's great to have you. Let me go ahead and fire off a couple of questions to you, Nate. You've done all these transactions: San Francisco, LA, Chicago, New York, Tokyo, suburban markets, rural markets, third world countries. What have you experienced in the last 15 months? How has that impacted your commercial real estate that you've noticed?
Are you saying something happened 15 months ago that we should care about?
Well, I think everybody's getting tired of the C word, so I'm just using a time frame.
Yeah, boy.
If we want to go back there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, thank you. I'd rather not. But 15 months ago, the world did change, and commercial real estate was impacted maybe more than anyone else. So it's been fascinating to watch that unfold, especially from a macro perspective. So I live in Utah. I've seen what things have done here, but with clients all over the world, I've watched the world adapt to commercial real estate in a new way. So I'm not able to share my screen, but I would like to share a link. I'll do that in the chat box. So, my chat's disabled. So it's pretty straightforward. So as the world started to change, since the Industrial Revolution, what we've seen is urbanization, people moving from farm towns, suburban areas, and they're moving to cities. That's essentially the trend over the last 200 years or so. And that changed 15 months ago. Rent prices.
Do you have percentages on things like that, Nate?
Yeah, so
you say people have urbanized for the last X amount of decades.
3 out of every 4 people on this planet live in a city. So
Wow.
75% of our world lives in cities, and that's only increasing. The projections before last year were that 80 to 90% of people would live in cities by the year 2050. So, and that seemed normal to all of us, right? Yeah. Did I cut you off, Mike?
No, it just, if that was the trend, I got this idea that maybe there's something else coming you're going to share.
Yeah, that's right. So what happened is in the biggest cities in the world, we started to see a population decrease. And population data is hard to collect. The census only happens every 10 years. So it's hard for us to see real-time data. So one of the metrics we use is rent. If rent goes down, that must mean that demand is down. And so rent prices dropped by 25% year over year in San Francisco. They
Wow.
dropped 15% in New York City, 20% in Boston, 15% in Chicago. I mean, we're talking about the biggest cities in the United States. Rents are going down. The last time rents went down, well, I mean, 2008, they kind of plateaued. We haven't seen that sort of change in the past.
Is
So
that because landlords just feel generous, or are people going somewhere else?
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a landlord myself, and as generous as I am, I wasn't giving my tenants a break. So the people are leaving, and that's the point. And why were they leaving? Well, most of us, just like this webinar, get to work from home, or at least we got to work from home for a certain amount of time. And when that happened, people said, I'm not going to deal with the commute. I'm not going to deal with the transportation headaches. I don't have to go into the office. As long as I have high-speed internet, I can work from wherever I want. And so those people moved from those urban cities to suburban markets. What's interesting, Mike, is we didn't see a big change in rural cities. And the hypothesis is that rural cities didn't have the infrastructure to support the high-speed internet that people needed to work from home. So
So
anyway,
where are some of the cities that are picking up on this growth, and what is it doing to those markets?
it's crazy. We're seeing unprecedented rent growth in cities like Boise, Idaho, our own Salt Lake City, Utah, Phoenix, Arizona, St. Louis, Missouri, which seemed like it was dead on the vine. Their rent is up. Chattanooga, Tennessee, which Chattanooga is interesting because they have this little company there. You might have heard of them, called FedEx, and that they're in Memphis, but just outside of Chattanooga. And so they got kind of busy delivering some packages for another little company we know, Amazon. And yeah, so some of these cities have just exploded if they were prepared with the infrastructure to help people work from home.
So given this trend that you've seen over the last 15 months, is this expected? Can you anticipate or share with us if you expect to continue to see that, or you're going to see some other kind of change?
My personal feeling is that nobody really knows. If you and I had this webinar 17 months ago and you asked me what I thought was going to happen, I wasn't going to predict a pandemic. And so no one knows. What I think is safe to say is things are changing. And the principle for the abundant broker system is markets change, period. They always change. So how do we adapt to that change? Are we going to see people continue to move out of cities? I don't know. I think maybe urbanization is taking a break, taking a deep breath. Maybe there's a pause. I suspect cities will continue to grow over the long term. But the point is, markets change, and it's up to us to adapt and understand that change.
So given the audience that we have, Nate, if you were to share a takeaway from this webinar, from your experience traveling all over the world, what can you leave with the audience?
Yeah, there are some people in this world who get paid a lot of money to tell us what already happened. There's a few that I read from regularly, and they're telling us rents went down 25% year over year in San Francisco, which is interesting information. but it's not really helpful for us today. What's happening today and what's going to happen tomorrow? That's really what matters. And the
Yeah,
people,
and
yeah,
I'm sorry, Nate. I'm just I'm thinking if I am somebody just starting in commercial real estate, hearing the way things are shifting, or I'm a mentor bringing somebody on, or I'm a manager with 40 or 50 agents, or I have multiple locations. Um, what, how do you use this information to help these people?
you've got this principle in the abundant broker system, Mike, that I think is really powerful. I think you call it my specialized area or
Your
MSA.
MSA.
Yeah. So agents and brokers who really adopt, mentors even, who adopt this MSA strategy, which in short is developing your own data, your own market data. People who do that get to see these trends happen real time. The best San Francisco brokers were the ones who could see the rents falling real time, day over day. They were the ones who were able to help their clients divest early. They were able to help people lower rents. I think you call that blend and extend, Mike. Is that right?
Yeah, for example, if somebody has 2 years left on their lease and they're paying some higher number, you go to the tenant, you say, how would you like to reduce your rent in return for adding another 3 years term? So we'll make it a 5-year term and your rent is going to go down, maybe with some escalators. But we recognize the pressure you have on you as a tenant right now. We also are experiencing that as a landlord. And it's kind of a win for all strategy at times like these.
And I think the only people who really knew how to do that were the ones who understood what was happening in their market. Because if you were a Salt Lake City industrial broker at that same time and you recommended a blend and extend to your client, I mean, that's not right. That's not the right strategy. So every market responded differently. Suburban markets are growing, urban markets are struggling in some respects. But at the end of the day, build the MSA. If we each make that our mantra, we build our own data sets, and then we see trends happen in real time, we'll be able to adapt and advise our clients better than anyone else, even those highly paid economy specialists who are working for the big dogs.
So Nate, you took a little different path regarding MSA. The underlying root beneath the MSA is become an expert. And you became an expert in a little different way, not necessarily your own geographic area of the city, your own specialized industrial office, that kind of a thing. Tell us a little bit about what you did to become the expert and how these principles have served you, not only yourself, but in other markets.
Great question. Thanks
And
for
your
asking.
clients. Yeah.
So I kind of ended up in commercial real estate kind of happenstance. I needed a job and ended up here and got matched with a client that ended up being a good fit. But the principles were the same for me. So number one, I had to understand who was I working for, what and where did they want to be. For me, happened to be groups like Ace Hardware, the LDS Church, smaller retailers that specialized in specific markets, or the LDS Church. They happen to have members all over the world. So that's what I knew. What was more important, well, maybe equally important, understanding my client, was I thought at one time I could be the specialist for every market in the world, 700 markets. I was fooling myself, to be honest. And so every time I found a deal, I would get, an email saying, "Hey, we've got this new assignment in San Luis, Colorado." Well, I didn't know San Luis. And so I needed a local partner, someone who specialized in that market. And it's pretty crazy. Just last week, I was interviewing someone in New Mexico, and it was very clear that they did not understand the market. I knew the property and the market better than they did. And needless to say, I didn't hire that person. When I do find the right person, they're invaluable. And oftentimes they charge a full fee, meaning they'll charge a premium for the knowledge that they have. And users like my clients and myself are willing to pay that premium every day because we want someone who's got that specialized
I,
expertise.
I think that in my experience, Nate, I think that gets overlooked way too much. The discount brokers out there, that's not an abundant broker. An abundant broker is an expert that knows their market and they know their worth. And because of that knowledge, it's not what the broker gets paid. Whatever the broker gets paid, the client is 10 or 20 or 100 times increasing the value that they get by working with somebody that really knows their market.
Yeah, it's incredible how many guys I work with who are corporate real estate guys. They work at a bank or they work at, some big retailer, and they think that they can Google the CBRE, the JLL, the Cushman Wakefield market reports and understand the market. It's just not true. When we're looking at site selection or site specific, it could be a listing or it could be new lease space. It doesn't really matter. We need someone, you can't Google this stuff. Someone has the information and it's the person who's been doing the work, who's built their specialized area. That's the person we need. And there's usually only one or two of them in every market.
So a call to action for the audience would be, what would you say would be their call to action?
Yeah, I'd invite anyone participating in this webinar, even seasoned brokers who consider themselves mentors, to take a few minutes. Maybe it could be on your drive home today, turning off the radio and deciding what is your specialized area, number one. Number two, if you feel like you have a good grasp on what your specialized area is, that's the geography and the product type, then number two, how are you managing that data? And are there places where you could bolster that? Do you know every tenant and every landlord in your specialized area? If you don't, then I would create a plan to get there. And I think you have some principles, Mike, about daily disciplines that could help someone get there.
Right. And the abundant broker is a system, and it is a system that is built on the fundamentals, and those fundamentals don't change over time, but we get better. An example is basketball. When we're 10 years old, we learn how to dribble, shoot, those kind of things. Junior high, high school, college, NBA, they're still practicing the fundamentals. They're just getting a whole lot better. One point of clarification, not clarification. I heard you talk about guys. There is such a demand for good talent, and there are so few women in this industry. This is not this webinar topic, but for those who are listening, there is a wide open field. There is a wide open field. Nate, are your questions, your Q&A chat up for you now?
I've got the chat up, but it's been disabled for me, so I don't see any questions coming through. But
okay, so we will get back to each of you with your questions. I apologize for not having that little technical difficulty. We apparently are not in one of those markets that has the, but thanks again for joining us. And
Mike, I want to add a quick, I think you brought up a good point that I think is undershared, and that is we have a need in this industry. First of all, there's room for more experts. We need more local brokers. We need more experts in every market, whether that is New York City, San Francisco, Butte, Montana. I mean, we need rural agents. We desperately need them. So wherever you live, wherever you want to live, we need you. We need you whether you're female, male. We need you whether you're white, Black, Asian, Native American. We need all of you. And the more people we can get into this industry who are doing things the right way, the better off we'll all be together.
Well, thank you, Nate. And you're certainly a great role model for a lot of people just starting out, and for others that have been doing this 20, 30 years, they probably look at you as a rock star. I know I do. Thank you very much. And thank you, for our audience. And if you have not picked up a copy, there is a roadmap. It is called The Abundant Broker. You can go to Amazon and order your copy. And it lays out these fundamentals that we're talking about. And until then, y'all have a great week and look forward to our next webinar. Thank you again.
Thanks, Mike. Been a pleasure.